Hey folks, really excited about today's video. I've got some fun stuff. So Pathologic 2 doesn't have an official photo mode, but secretly it has a great one if you know how to look for it. And I'm going to show you how to use it on Windows PC. I don't know what other platforms this comes on, but I'm using Windows. So when I look for a photo mode in games, one of the things that I look for is the game itself and not necessarily the features of the photo mode. You check out my Ghostwire Tokyo video, that was a great example of a game that had a very minimal photo mode, but you could still take great pictures because it was a very atmospheric and beautiful game. Pathologic 2 is also a very atmospheric and beautiful game, if very bleak and dark. So I've been pretty interested in doing some virtual photography in that world after seeing some videos on the game online, but there was no real photo mode to speak of, so I had to cobble one together myself. So, at first I thought, that's fine. You can do photo mode in any game. You just alt print screen and get a picture. But I realized that actually in Pathologic, there's no crouch or any way to move the camera, and the day-night timing is pretty strict. It's actually part of the game. So it was actually pretty hard for me to get photos that were composed well at the time with the conditions that I wanted. So I started to think about what would I need to make Pathologic 2 a good photo mode? And the things that I thought of were print screen, the ability to move the camera, and the ability to remove the extra UI elements. Those are really the most important things that compose a photo mode for me. And then there are things that are nice to have, like time manipulation for day-night cycle, weather and lighting changes, and then posing the character. And then finally, there's things that are possible in post editing that it's nice to have in the game. Things like depth of field or motion blur or filters and stickers and frames, things like that. So I'm not really concerned about the things that are possible to do in post. I would like to have the nice to haves, but again, they're just nice to have. So what we really need to do are have print screen, which we already have. I've confirmed that that works in Pathologic. The ability to move the camera and the ability to remove the UI. So there's not much UI in Pathologic 2, but we do find a way to do that. And I even found a few ways to get some of the nice to haves into the game so we can change things like the day-night cycle or the weather and environment. Before we go any further, there is a big disclaimer. We're going to be using the game console. The game console is not dev intended. In the description of this video, I'm going to be linking to a Steam thread that I used to get a lot of this information, and the developers actually chimed in and warned that actually this can break your game. We're going to be messing with save files. We're going to be changing things that the developers never intended to be changed, and whenever you're doing that, you're running the risk of causing real problems for the game. I'm going to try to show you how to use the console without actually affecting the gameplay, so you can try to still get the dev intended experience, and hopefully it won't cause any issues for you. It hasn't caused any issues for me when I have been playing through the game, but I do want to warn you that if you are the purest of pure gamers and you don't want to fiddle with anything outside the game, then maybe you want to wait on doing this until you've beaten the game once. But for people who are okay with that and willing to fiddle around with some under the hood stuff, let's take a look at the so-called secret photo mode in Pathologic 2. Okay, so now we're off to take some photos. Ooh, lights. This character, though, is doomed. There's no other way to say it. He's going to die. I have no money. I'm already too hungry. I need to start over. But for the sake of the video and moving forward with things, we're going to start out showing you how to use the console. So the first thing I do when I go to use the console is Control-Shift-F4. And that brings up the console. Like it says, you can press question mark for help. This will show you commands. All the commands you can use. We're going to talk about the other tabs in a second, but the first thing I always do when I open the console is do save game. And that always saves my game wherever I am, and that means I can reload before I start messing with things. Now, because I'm about to die and this character is doomed, what I'm going to do is set immortal true. So now I should be immortal. And we can check this by going to the inspector. The inspector shows the objects in the game world. This is a Unity game, so this is a Unity game inspector, I believe. The one that we are most interested in is actually the update service. If you come in here, you see all the updaters that are updating things about the game. In the player updater, has 9 updatables. You can see the player. Come in here, is dead, is immortal, is now set to true. You can actually toggle this in the UI if you want to, and you can come in and change things like health if you need to, which we will do later because you can see my hunger is going crazy up at the top over here. So instead of having a hunger of 1, I'm going to set my hunger to 0. You can see my hunger goes away. And we'll use that later to remove the UI elements when we're taking our photos. So that's the main use case for that. We've already saved, so we're going to revert back to before. We've mucked with all these settings, remember, to try to keep the actual gameplay more to what the developers intended. The next thing we can do is we can set the camera mode. So you can either do that by coming to the camera updater in the update service and selecting the type of camera here, or you can go to the console, which I think might be faster once you get used to it. So you can do camera fly. Now the camera is set to fly mode, and we can go down and go up, and we can get all the nice camera angles that we want. Is that guy going to attack me? This shows that you are literally just arms. So, you know, you can't get character photos really, because you are just arms. I think this guy might attack me. Just keep walking, buddy. Okay, so now we can go around and compose whatever photo we want. So maybe we want to do something like this with the polyhedron in the background. I sort of like this composition, but maybe I don't like the time of day. So the next thing I can do is go back to the inspector, and there is a set solar time and set game time command. So what you can do in the console is type set ? And it will give you all the things you can set. For example, when I was first starting out with this, I didn't actually know how to set the time. So what you can do as well is do get solar time, and that gives you the format and the actual solar time that you have right now. And so I want to set that to sunrise or sunset. That's normally when the lighting looks the nicest. So we can do that to 7:30 to 7:45 is sunrise. And then 2045 to 2100 is sunset. So like 8:30 to 9, you use non-military time. So we just want to set that to one of those time periods and see what happens. Set solar time. And you have to put the time in quotes, like that. We're going to do 7:45. You can see it's brighter. The sun is coming up over on that side. So let's do sunset and see if we can get different lighting over here. If you press up on the arrow keys for the console, it'll bring you back to your last command. There we go. You can see we're starting to get some sunset imagery over here. Look, we got some kids and things. Okay, so what happened was a messenger came up and talked to me and locked my character in a conversation while I was in camera fly mode. And so I had to switch the camera back to first person controlling mode to actually go finish that conversation. And then once I did that, the game continued on. So characters coming up and talking with you can cause problems if you're in camera fly mode. Expect some shenanigans. We can set this time. And I think I do want it a little bit earlier. Maybe something like this. And maybe we want to change the weather too. So that's the last thing we can really do is go in and change the weather. And the way I figured out how to do this is there's actually a command called enum. Enum stands for enumeration if you're into programming. And this will tell you a bunch of different enums. And so this helps, like if you need to add something to your character or something like that, this will tell you the list of what you can add. For us, we care about weather. So we do enum-weather. And these are all our choices for weather. And then there is a command called change weather. And we can do, say, rain sun. It is case sensitive. So if you ever are confused about what you should do, you can follow with a question mark and it will tell you. So in this case, I forgot to flag rain sun like this. Oh, and I need to set an interval. I'm not actually sure what the interval does. I think it's the time it lasts. So I just set it to 100. Can we do rain light? Okay, that did work. You can see we got some clouds. There's some rain. Okay, so it was just because of the angle things didn't work. So it was just because of the angle things looked like nothing had changed. So I think what I want is like, let's try rain heavy. You can see that shuts out a lot of the light. Adds a bunch of fog. Oh yeah, this is nice. We've got sort of the rain coming down in here. It's a little foggy. You got a little bit of the sunlight reflected. Let's see if we can change the sun a bit. And then to take a screenshot, what I normally do is just do Alt print screen. And then the last thing I do is you can see we've got exhaustion up there at the top. So if we come into the inspector, we go back to our updater service, player updater, we can find exhaustion somewhere, fatigue, and just set that to 0. That goes green and then goes away, and we can take our photo, even though we missed the time a little bit. That's okay. Reset the time to whatever we want. Something like this. I like this a lot. Cut that tree out on the side. There we go. Yeah, and now we just print screen. Cool. And we paste that into our favorite program. I use GIMP, but feel free to use Photoshop or Paint or whatever. It doesn't matter. So I'll have linked down below the Steam thread that I used to find this information during this, so you can know about them. Again, be careful doing this. Remember that this is going to be potentially game breaking, and you'll want to reload your save afterwards, so always save first. But yeah, that's the basics of how to get photos in Pathologic 2, even though you can't move the camera around. You just come into the console and move the camera around that way. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you enjoy taking photos in Pathologic 2. See you next time.